What is this, a baddie's chain? I'm not no motherfucking baddie, nigga. Snoop took this off his neck and put it on my neck in a So High video. And I went to go get the chain cleaned, and I'm like, shit. Person I took it to, he's like, what's this? I'm like, what you mean, what's this? This shit ain't worth shit. You kind of put me in danger. Cause where I was living, a nigga would have thought this was worth something.
D-Smoke, where you from, mama?
I'm from Inglewood.
Nah, where you from, mama?
I'm from Inglewood.
So I had to ask you, you know, just because I want to see if you was, you know, if you broke the chains. Niggas sweating you and checking you and asking you where you from, trying to draw you back into that negative world.
Right.
And I see you wouldn't allow me to do that.
Period.
Which is strong. I like that from you.
Snoop took this off his neck and put it on my neck in a So High video. I went to go get the chain cleaned. The person I took it to was like, you want to clean it? He's like, what's this? I'm like, what you mean, what's this? Man, I don't know if I should have thought if it was real or not. Like, even the little fake shit that I wear, this ain't shit. This shit ain't worth shit. So not only did you with me while I had shit going on, you kind of put me in danger. Cause where I was living, a nigga would have thought this was worth something. But I don't think he considered that. He just wanted to look like, just like what he do with everybody else. If I wanted a chain, by this time I would have saved up and got one. And as everybody say Uncle Snoop, you know, I definitely don't refer to him as no damn uncle. Maybe I should, because there's a few uncles that I don't like. Maybe he's one of them. You're doing all this shit on the internet to be the clown that he is on the internet. It looked like he's this good guy. But everybody that talk about him, y'all ain't hearing good story. What? Give me a good story about him outside his ass running in the Olympics. I am forced to say that nigga is worse than Suge.
What was Dre's response after, of course, you were, acquired?
Oh, he didn't like it.
You didn't like it?
No, he didn't like it when I bought Death Row. He spoke about it. He said it. He spoke to it. He didn't like it, but at the same time, he didn't know what I was doing. Nobody did. It just looked like, why the f is he buying a bag of problems when he's living a life of success and not having to deal with it? Why would he bring that back into his life? But they didn't understand what I seen. I seen my legacy. I seen certain things that was connected to me that needed to be finished as far as like unfinished business. And also to protect my legacy by putting some beautiful music in Death Row and putting some happy times in Death Row and some life rather than death.
How does he feel about it now since you?
He loves it. He represents it. He's down with it. I bought all the homies Death Row jackets. That said, where my Death Row jacket at? I said, I didn't know you wanted one, cuz.
Now, for me to you, Donald, I wish I had half of your money. But for that, you need a 20-year-old and a divorce lawyer. Now, I may not have half his paper, but I got twice the dick, and you can believe that. Donald say he wants to run for president and move on into the White House. Why not? It wouldn't be the first time you pushed a black family out of their home.
He didn't hesitate. He looked straight into the camera and said it. Snoop Dogg is worse than Suge Knight. Now let that sit for a second. We're talking about Suge Knight, the man whose name became synonymous with intimidation, controversy, and some of the darkest chapters in hip-hop history. And Danny Boy, someone who grew up under that very system, just said Snoop is worse. That's not a casual statement. That's nuclear, but here's the thing. This wasn't about street muscle. It wasn't about violence. It wasn't even really about money. It was about a chain, a death row chain, one that turned out to be fake. And according to Danny Boy, that chain represents something much bigger. To understand why this exploded the way it did, we've got to rewind all the way back to the beginning, because this story didn't start in 2026. It started with a 16-year-old kid from Chicago walking into the most feared record label in America. Danny Boy, born Daniel Stewart, was just a teenager when he got signed to Death Row Records in 1994. And back then, Death Row wasn't just hot, it was untouchable. Dr. Dre was crafting era-defining production. Tupac was operating at a level few artists ever reach, and Snoop Dogg was the face of West Coast dominance. And right in the middle of all that chaos, a young R&B singer from the Midwest with a voice that could cut through anything. Danny Boy's vocals are stitched into some of the most iconic records of the 90s. I Ain't Mad at Cha, Picture Me Rollin', Heaven Ain't Hard to Find, these weren't background filler tracks. These were generational anthems. His voice helped define the emotional side of Tupac's catalog. But here's the part that rarely gets mentioned. Despite all those contributions, Danny Boy never got his own proper album release under Death Row. He was in the studio daily, cutting record after record, entire projects sitting unreleased. Then 1996 happened. Tupac was gunned down. Suge Knight caught a major case. Death Row started crumbling from the inside out. And when the dust settled, Danny Boy walked away with almost nothing. Worse than that, he walked away with the stigma. Being tied to Death Row made other labels hesitant. He was too connected to the chaos, but never properly compensated for building the catalog. Unreleased music produced by major names sat locked away in a vault he couldn't touch. And for decades, that's where the story seemed to end. Until 2022, that's when Snoop Dogg acquired Death Row Records. And suddenly, everything changed. For Danny Boy, this wasn't just business news. This was personal. The same man who once walked those halls now owned the entire legacy. And when Snoop reached out to him, it felt like redemption. According to Danny Boy, Snoop called him personally after seeing him chart independently. The conversation wasn't cold, it wasn't corporate, it was spiritual. Talk of destiny, God's timing, alignment. For someone who felt overlooked for years, that hits different. They reunited, dropped music together, fans called it a comeback. It looked like a full circle moment, but even during the celebration, cracks were forming. After the acquisition, Death Row's catalog was temporarily pulled from major streaming platforms. That move reportedly impacted royalties for legacy artists, including Danny Boy. He began publicly questioning what was happening. Then came the contract. And this is where everything shifted. Danny Boy says Snoop offered him $10,000 for 2 singles. On the surface, that might not sound outrageous, but buried in the paperwork, according to him, was a 7-year exclusivity clause. 7 years, locked in, for $10,000. And here's the twist. He says he had already been offered $50,000 by his independent label. He turned down a bigger guaranteed check. For loyalty, for legacy, for Death Row. When his lawyer pushed back on the exclusivity language, Danny Boy claims Snoop's energy changed completely. The warmth disappeared. And allegedly, he was told something along the lines of, "I don't even know you like that." Imagine hearing that from someone you made history with. But the contract drama wasn't even the moment that broke everything. That moment came during a music video shoot. Snoop took off a Death Row chain from his own neck and placed it on Danny Boy. On camera, in front of the crew. It looked heavy, diamond-studded, symbolic. For Danny Boy, it meant acceptance, validation, a seat at the table he helped build. He took that chain back to Chicago and wore it proudly. Then one day, he brought it to a jeweler. And that's when he says everything collapsed. The jeweler allegedly told him the chain wasn't real gold. The stones weren't diamonds, it was cubic zirconia. Costume jewelry. Now pause. Danny Boy says he was living in a tough area at the time. Walking around with what looked like a serious piece could have made him a target. Whether the chain was valuable or not didn't matter in the streets. Perception matters, and he felt that perception put him at risk. He even tried to resell it. No one wanted it. That's when he went public, and that's when he dropped the bomb. Snoop is worse than Suge Knight. His reasoning? According to Danny Boy, Suge Knight was never subtle about who he was. Aggressive? Absolutely. Controversial? Without question. But in Danny's version of events, at least Suge was transparent. If you were signed, you knew what kind of energy you were dealing with. And more importantly, he says the money was real. The chains were real. The gestures had weight. When Suga handed something to you, it wasn't symbolic, it was solid gold. That distinction matters to Danny Boy, because to him, authenticity outweighs optics every time. In contrast, he claims Snoop Dogg operates differently. The branding is warm, yet the image is polished. The Uncle Snoop persona feels inviting. But Danny Boy argues that behind that image are gestures that look meaningful without actually carrying substance. Promo-style chains, public-facing moments, nostalgic reunions that photograph well, symbolism without security. And for someone who helped build the original Death Row sound, that difference cuts deep. He also pointed out something else that's been simmering under the surface: the way certain legacy artists from Death Row Records haven't been elevated the way he believes they should have been since the acquisition. In his eyes, the people who laid the foundation deserved executive roles, real ownership, real acknowledgement, not just cameos and compilation placements. And then something interesting happened. Other voices began surfacing. The Daz Dillinger went public with accusations involving royalties and behind-the-scenes maneuvering. Nate Dogg's son raised concerns about masters and family control. Even Suge Knight, speaking from prison, questioned aspects of how the death row deal was structured. Now, accusations aren't convictions. Claims aren't court rulings. But when multiple former affiliates begin expressing dissatisfaction at different times, people naturally start connecting dots. Meanwhile, Snoop has remained largely silent on Danny Boy's specific claims. No lengthy rebuttal, no public back and forth, just quiet. And that silence, it's being interpreted two very different ways. Some see it as strategic, let the storm pass, don't feed it. Others see it as avoidance. The internet, of course, chose chaos. Memes exploded, the fake chain jokes ran wild. Comment sections split down the middle. Some called Danny Boy bitter. Others said he was finally saying what others were afraid to. But here's what makes this heavier than industry gossip. Danny Boy isn't online flexing or chasing viral moments. He works a regular job at a funeral home during the week. On weekends, he's still singing, still performing, still holding on to the one thing nobody could repossess, his voice. He says he's not bitter. He just wants his masters, the unreleased music, the work he put in as a teenager. He even publicly offered to buy it back for $7, mirroring what he claims his value was reduced to. That's not about jewelry, that's about legacy. At the end of the day, whether you believe Danny Boy, whether you believe Snoop, one thing is undeniable. A chain is supposed to symbolize connection. But when that chain turns out to be hollow, it hits differently. This isn't just about cubic zirconia. It's about artists who helped build empires feeling like footnotes in their own story. It's about nostalgia being repackaged. It's about loyalty versus leverage. And maybe the real question isn't who's worse. Maybe the real question is this: when legends buy back their legacy, who actually benefits? Because sometimes the shine isn't the stone, it's the story behind it. And in this case, that story is far from over. Because whether this ends in receipts, reconciliation, or radio silence, the conversation isn't dying anytime soon. The death row name still carries weight. The artists who built it still have voices. And when those voices start speaking all at once, people listen. So, what do you think? And is this a case of business being business, or is this a deeper pattern finally getting exposed? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm reading all of them. And if you want more deep dives that go beyond surface headlines and unpack what's really happening behind the scenes in music and entertainment, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because in this industry, the image is polished, but the reality, it's usually way more complicated than the filter. Until next time, stay curious, stay sharp, and don't just watch the shine, question the source.